Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live, live from Palm Beach, Florida. And I should say, after a quick trip overnight to New York to participate in the anniversary celebration of the Queen's Republican Party, I had a great time with all my old friends, all my old, I shouldn't say old friends. They're not old. A lot of them are young. Some great candidates. They got a great, Maud Maron is a great candidate for DA against the absolute criminal who is the DA now. Do you remember his name? The absolute criminal who's the DA of Manhattan right now?
Oh, Mr. Bragg.
Everybody knows Mr. Bragg. Now he's yep. And there's all kinds of talk about Cuomo and Adams and Republicans, and we'll have to see what happens with that. And the enthusiasm for Donald Trump. I was introduced by Miranda Devine, who very kindly said that they never would have had a hard drive if it wasn't for me. And I will kindly say the truth. It would never have been published by the Post if it wasn't for her. I didn't say anything, so you can't accuse me. But you know what I'm talking about, right? The woman has what a lot of men don't have. Guts. Okay. Don't get nasty. Guts. So there's a lot going on today. It's hard to say what's the top story today. I think the saddest story today is the insanity of the United States Senate not being able to get 60 votes for the simple proposition that men shouldn't participate in women's sports. And since every Democrat voted that men should participate in women's sports, how can you possibly vote for the Democratic Party? How can you possibly vote for them? This is insane. Of course, if you're religious, it's insane, since the first book of Genesis makes it clear that there's men and women. That's it. But scientific, they're following science. Yeah. Tell me what the science is that you can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. Now, you say, well, what's going on in their head? Well, that's totally different. Somebody can be walking around thinking they're George Washington, but we don't call him George unless we're being, sarcastic or there's some therapeutic reason for it. And we sure don't let him get on a horse and pose for pictures. This was a mental disturbance forever. It sure fits the description of a mental illness, doesn't it? When you are removed from reality in a dramatic way, then you have mental illness. So, again, if I'm walking around thinking I'm President Lincoln, now if I'm a man and I have what is there that defines a man, and I'm walking around thinking I'm a woman, I got a problem that should be dealt with sympathetically, medically, psychologically, psychiatrically. Instead of having these whores and prostitutes and people looking for profit, trying to exaggerate the number with every kid who, has some doubt about their sexuality, which is about 50% of the kids, of which no more than about 2 or 3% really have a problem. But, kids are impressionable as hell. You don't have to even be, all you have to do is, first of all, if you're a parent, you know that. I was a parent. But if you talk to parents, you know it. Or if you have a little common sense, you know it. So what's happened to the Democrats? This is women, men not participating in women's sports, I'm sorry, is not a Republican Democratic issue. It's not a liberal or conservative issue. It's science. It's real science. It's not Fauci science so he can make a bundle of money, millions and millions and millions. Still hasn't turned over his royalties. It isn't Fauci science so that he can sell out to Red China. It's real science. Well, a couple didn't vote. 2 Republicans didn't vote. Jesus, quit. Loomis and Capito. Capito's from West Virginia, and how she became some kind of lefty, I don't know. But Slotkin and Welsh, Dems didn't vote. Other than that, all the Dems voted that men can participate in women's sports. I'm surprised at some of them. I really am. Now, I don't even really know how you give Trump a victory on this. I think you gave him a victory by voting against it, idiots. You don't think, I mean, I see already Swazi, who represents a Nassau County district that is, Swazi tries to be a moderate because the district has voted for Trump. It's a district that's becoming increasingly conservative, not far from where I was last night. Well, I mean, they're he's going to have everybody who thinks that there's something really sick about you to want to let men participate in women's sports come after him. What would the problem been if he voted for this? He's not giving. I mean, how much of it? I really think the Democrats have, in a state of panic, have lost any political judgment they have. They're so used to cheating. When it's an actual straight up political decision, they can't make it anymore. When you've got 75% of the American people saying men should not participate in women's sport, you got 13% saying they should. And you vote in a moderate district in favor of men beating the crap out of women. Well, you don't deserve to be in Congress because you're too damn stupid. I mean, personally, because I like substance and not all this political crap, I would have preferred it passed. We got plenty of other issues to beat the Democrats over the head with. But my God, the only political calculation better would be if this took place right before the midterms. Maybe we can bring it up for a vote again then and see what happens. Bet we get more of them. We probably get just enough not to pass it. They'll let the ones that are in real trouble vote for it because the Democrats do nothing based on the good of the American people or substance. They do it for the good of the party so that they can make a lot of money. I'm convinced that the Democratic Party is ultimately organized about greed, which is why they never criticize each other. Because if they stay together, they can all make money, even if they're Jewish and they have to listen to virulent, hateful anti-Semitism within their party. Their party now is plurality, at least, anti-Semitic, possibly majority. Well, there's an article or editorial in the Wall Street Journal, which is completely disingenuous and really stupid. It says Trump's old world order. Does he want deals with Russia and China to carve up the planet? He should tell Americans. When the hell did Trump ever say he wants deals only with Russia and China? This is completely stupid. Because he disagrees with you, you fail to take the time and patience to try to figure out what he's really saying. And you fail to figure out who's in the stronger or weaker position. So you support the present world order, right? He began trying to create a different way of governing 4 years ago. So what did it produce in foreign policy? It produced the Abraham Accords. What did the world order you want to keep produce? A massive war in the Middle East. He wanted to try a new way of handling things, and Russia stayed the hell out of Ukraine. Russia had invaded Georgia under Bush. Russia had invaded Ukraine under feckless Obama, and taken actually most of the territory it has now. And then it invaded under Biden and took the extra 2-3% that created a perfect bridge to Crimea. It didn't attack under Trump because it was afraid to attack under Trump. And the idea that he wants to negotiate with Russia and China, how does that become he wants to negotiate only with them? Isn't he negotiating treaties with Japan and trying to renegotiate the agreement with Mexico and Canada? Didn't he just get Taiwan to put 500 billion, 500 million? I don't remember into the sophisticated long-term chips business, which is so vital to us. It's totally ridiculous to think he wants to negotiate just with Russia and China. But unlike the demented numbskull who is there, he realizes that it's important to talk to both of them. I mean, it's a lot more important to talk to both of them than the little weasel Ukraine, who means nothing. I mean, if you say, well, for the good of his people, honestly, he's not the guy to negotiate with for the good of his people. He's been selling out his people since he started. If he were an honest man and a good man, he would not have taken all that money from the biggest and crookedest oligarch in Ukraine. But you never hear that, do you? When he's invited in there with Stiermer and Macron and they surround him like he's a hero. Only problem is you can't see him. They're dealing with a guy who made it because Ukraine is one of the most crooked countries in Europe. He's the product of the guy who facilitated that entire crookedness and made billions, stole billions from the people. The Ukrainian people are poor because their politicians steal, almost all of them. There have been, I think, 7 or 8 presidents of Ukraine. Every single one of them has been corrupt, except one. And he was poisoned, probably by Putin, and made ineffective. But the debate used to be, who's more corrupt, Russia or Ukraine? So no question, Russia's more corrupt on an overall number, but on a per capita number, pretty close. First time I went, I asked John McCain, who can I trust in Ukraine, in the government? He said, no one, except Viktor Yushchenko, who was the man who was poisoned. One person. It's all the same people, or the products of the same people, like little Zelensky. Zelensky's sitting on criminal information that is dynamite with regard to the highest levels of our government, covering up for Biden and possibly a lot of other Democrats. Maybe that's why he visited with them right before he went and visited with Trump, because irregardless of whether or not Trump is the guy that has to do with war and peace and the death of his people, he doesn't care about that. He cares about the flow of money. That would have more to do with the Democrats he met with originally before he went there. And since when do you get yourself ready for a meeting with a president that you need to ingratiate, and you go talk in advance to his bitter, crooked political opponents who destroyed our Constitution and tried to put him in jail 4 times? So this was a setup. And it was set up by the Democrats who met with him before he went in to meet with Vance and with Trump. And they all want the war to continue, because if the war continues, the money continues. And it's all about the money. And the Ukrainian people be damned. And that's why you don't tell me we're not serving the interests of the Ukrainian people. We can get that little weasel out and put some honest person in there. And we have a chance of building an honest government there with America invested the way brilliantly President Trump has suggested. And you can see that that's at the core of this investment by Taiwan. They're making chips in the United States. It makes us closer to Taiwan, gives us another incentive to defend them. It makes it more politically palatable, too, for the American people, because we know the American people don't support long engagement. So if you go in there and you support them, it goes beyond 6 months, everybody's going to switch, unless you can say, oh, my God, if we don't save them, we're not going to be able to be the computer superpower. And if we're not the computer superpower, China's going to own us. Oh, we get that. Now, in Ukraine, how is Ukraine important to us? Israel is our best friend. Israel has done everything we've asked, and as Ronald Reagan said, a lot more than you know. Israel has died for us, and we've died for them. What has Ukraine ever done for us? Nice people. I love them. But we want to talk about friends? Huh? They're friends of the Democrat Party. They endorsed a Democratic candidate 3 times in a row and interfered in our election. That makes them friends? They ever go to war for us? No, never. So what do we owe them? We owe them decency. But we don't owe them the lives of American soldiers. They never gave us the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. Have they been just uniformly corrupt from just about every moment of their existence coming out of the Soviet Union? You're damn right they have. And have certain preferred American politicians made billions that way? Yes. And have they covered it up to maintain corruption in my country and theirs? Yeah. So tell me what we owe them. We owe them being fair. And they owe us a lot and a lot more. And that's the way they treat a president and vice president. That's the way they treat us, the American people. Because in Europe, we are the suckers. They don't have to defend themselves. We die for them. France can get attacked, surrender immediately, and then hope that America bails them out. Now, this is some joke that they don't even need us now. Zelensky ran off to see all of the useless leaders of a decrepit Europe that it's not living 100 years ago. It's not living 200 years ago. I think it might be before the Renaissance. They're living off their palaces, and they're living off their museums, and they're living off their paintings and their music, and they sure are not living off expectations for the future, because they have none. I mean, in France, they're going to go down from 35 hours a week to 22 and have a 4-month vacation instead of 3. And Germany is becoming like France rather than, I always thought France had become like Germany. Our future is with Eastern Europe, with the countries that are being maligned as neo-Nazi my backside. If you want to find neo-Nazis, go to England and look at Sturmer, who's running a government in which they put a guy in jail for thinking the wrong thoughts. Or go look at this new guy that got elected in Germany, who won't talk to the party that won the second most votes, because he's decided they have neo-Nazis in the party. But maybe he has some neo-Nazis in his party too. Or some kooks, or some communists. And he wants to make a deal with the party that does have communists in their party. So why not make a deal with them so we have a right-wing government and tell them to get rid of the neo-Nazis if you fully believe they are? They will. The only party that won't get rid of people who hate Jews, people who are anti-Semitic, obviously, people who are anti-white, people who are anti-America, is a Democrat Party. I mean, they're always afraid. Republican Party's gotten rid of people who were alleged to be too extreme. Democrat Party doesn't. Might interfere with our ability to make money. And then Schumer. Jewish people being attacked.
All of a sudden, he's not so drawn to the cameras.
I know, except to say that Bibi Netanyahu shouldn't be reelected. And then he's angry about interference by the Russians that amounted to nothing, when the interference was really by the Ukrainians in favor of the Democrats for 3 consecutive elections, including the ambassador of Ukraine endorsing the Democrat candidate, including little Zelensky coming to a Democratic rally, and then visiting with Democrats to get his strategy right before he met with Trump. Do they think we're stupid? We wouldn't have beaten the crap out of them if we were stupid, because we had to overcome their dominance of the press, because we have to be much better than them because of the press. And they're cheating, which is substantial. And don't anybody kid you. Democratic Party has been cheating in elections since it was a party of slavery. So we're going to take a short break.
And Mayor,
we'll be right back.
And we come back, we're going to get a live report from our White House correspondent in Washington.
Good.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please. This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live. And if I have this correct, we have our correspondent in Washington and a great investigative reporter, Kara Castronova. There she is.
Hey,
And
Mayor.
Kara, I was with a lot of your old friends last night in Queens at the
I
Republican
heard.
dinner.
I saw pictures. A lot of people were sending me photographs, and everybody was.
Yeah,
so
they
happy to
missed
see
you.
They missed you, and they were so glad that you went back to New York just for that. So everybody.
Yeah,
felt
we had a
everybody
good
felt
time.
Great.
So
I wish I was there.
First of all, anything you can tell us about today at the White House, and then I want to talk about tomorrow and what you think the president's going to do during the, I guess they're calling it the joint speech, but it really is a State of the Union.
It's like a State of the Union, but it's not officially one. I think you have to be officially in office a few months to be able to call it a State of the Union address. But this is something that's typical that a lot of presidents have done in the past, including Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton. I think even Joe Biden somehow was able to wake up and do one at one point.
Right, he did.
But
You did.
Yeah, so this is just really the president coming out and addressing the nation, talking about the accomplishments of the administration so far, which are a lot, obviously, in such a short amount of time, and just what to expect from the future. And I believe the theme, and it just came out, is called the renewal of the American dream. So that's going to be the theme of President Trump's
Well,
first address.
that's a good, the renewal of the American dream. I like that
Yes.
as a theme.
So do I. And a lot of people felt hopeful when Trump got into office, and they still do. And they're watching him accomplish things at record speed. So I think there's a lot of people who really do believe that Trump is the president to obviously renew the American dream. So that's the theme. And like I said, this came out in a press release recently, only in the past hour or two, that the first address in this joint Congress, the White House officials, I guess they originally told Fox News that there will be 4 sections of this. And the first one will be accomplishments, obviously, from Trump's first term, what Trump administration has done for the economy, the president's renewed push for Congress to pass additional funding for border security, which we know is very important to most voters, and the president's plans for peace around the globe, which, again, something really important that is obviously has a lot of people talking this past week with everything happening in Ukraine. I think most Americans support peace like most human beings would. So those are the main things that President Trump will be talking about tomorrow night, which I'll be there for, and I'm excited to see it.
Oh, we look forward to it, and we'll have you on. And he's obviously a great speaker. I take it that they're not going to Democrats not going to rip up his speech, but they're threatening to not show up.
They are, and if they don't show up, I'm sure not so many people are going to miss them. But there's actually going to be, and I don't know, there's a Senator Alyssa Slotkin, and she's supposed to do a speech right after Trump, sort of a rebuttal speech. So it'll be interesting to see. They might show up to support that. So she's doing a rebuttal speech.
She couldn't figure out what her position is on men participating in women's sports. She was so cowardly. She didn't vote. Every other Democrat except her and Welch voted against it because they want to see women's sports ruined. But she couldn't even vote on that. She was so scared.
Right. It's unbelievable how it is. It's a subject. That's a subject with the men and women's sports that most Americans, I would say like 80% of Americans, if not more, believe no men should be in women's sports. But for some reason, the Democrats continue to pander to this ridiculous cause, and it's absolutely unbelievable. But this woman will be doing a rebuttal tomorrow night, so I'm interested to see what she has to say in rebuttal to anything President Trump is doing, because right now his approval ratings are very good. People are happy with what he's doing with the economy, with immigration, with so many things. So I'm interested to see how she could possibly say anything in quote unquote rebuttal.
Well, I think the only thing they'll be able to say is prices haven't come down. And I think the president should spend some time in explaining how his programs are designed to have that happen. And in his first term, it took about 8 months for it to work. And this time he's coming into a worse problem. So bear with us. All the things are being done that will bring prices down.
Of course.
And
It's only been a couple months now for anybody to think that prices could come down in such a fast amount of time, especially considering the disaster job that the Biden administration did to the economy. That's just unrealistic. And I think most Americans know that. People are smarter than the news and the politicians give them credit for. They know that obviously the economy was destroyed by the Biden administration, and it's only a matter of time before Trump brings it back.
So how is the spirit in the White House?
It's great. I mean, really just being part of the press corps has been amazing. This White House has been really receptive and really welcoming to what they're calling new media, alternate media, anything that's not fake news or legacy media. And I think that, actually I heard on NPR, somebody mentioned my name on a very progressive show, like these far right reporters have somehow managed to get into the White House. Which I think it's unbelievable. So they're talking about this on NPR and on the news. They're so angry that reporters like me have actually been able to, actually have a seat at the table and witness what's happening in this administration. It makes it really difficult for them to spin their narrative when there's people there with various viewpoints, which this White House really obviously is embracing. From the left to the far right, to the far left, they're welcoming journalists from everywhere. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to just be the mainstream media and the NPRs of the world are the only ones who are getting to report the news. So that's making people very angry. But the spirits are very good in general at the White House. Obviously, Karen Levitt, she's an amazing press secretary. I really look up to the way that she handles, the fake
Yeah.
news. She's amazing, and she always does it with a smile, and she comes armed with the facts, and she's been amazing. So it's been a pleasure to watch her in action. She has a lot of young, wonderful people underneath her deputies and her press office. They're very welcoming, like I said, and very accommodating to anybody that wants to report there at the White House. They're not partial to the legacy
Right.
media the way that past administrations have been. They treat everybody equally, and it's amazing. And one of the things that's pretty awesome, Mr. Mayor, is that really the in-house press, they call it, was always sort of only 5 media outlets like Reuters, the AP, maybe CNN here and there. And these really big organizations were the only ones welcome into going into the Oval Office or going into executive order signings and things like that. But now they're making a space every day for new media, like Blaze Media the other day was in there, Newsmax, OAN. It's only a matter of time, maybe in a week or two before Lindell TV and before America's Mayor Live is in there reporting from the Oval Office. So they're letting all of these people that never got a chance before come in and actually get to witness President Trump signing executive orders and things of that nature. That never happened in any other administration prior, ever.
Well, that's a wonderful thing, and you're doing a great job. And we can't wait till tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night should be interesting. I'm looking forward to. We'll be there. Hopefully, we'll be there live. We're hoping to. And we could talk tomorrow night about what's going
Great.
on.
God bless.
God bless
Thank you. Boy, she's doing a great job, huh? We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. She did a good job. Very good job.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's Coffee.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order...
Well, I'm going to be interested tomorrow night in the joint address. Now, what I actually believe this is the president taking advantage of the fact that the Constitution does not require a State of the Union speech in the first year of a president's term. And of course, he's a new president. I don't know if that would have been the case, and we'll find out for you had he been reelected. But in any case, he's calling in an address to Congress. But given the outline that Kara just laid out for us, the accomplishments, promises made, promises kept, which have been remarkable, really. the economy, the border, and peace in the world. That pretty much covers a State of the Union speech. Now, here's what I do hope he does. And it may be, and I've heard a number of Trump supporters say this today, so I'm not alone. I don't claim this as a novel thought, but I did have it on my own before I heard them. I always like cutting off offensive attacks early. Like, let him go 5 yards, but not 30. And I think we should cut off this attack that he's not lowering prices fast enough. And he should talk about that at the beginning of the end, because that's the one thing the Democrats are using against him. And if you look at the polls, it's the one thing that's having a little bit of penetration. But there's a heck of an explanation for it. First of all, you can go back to prior administrations when they had to turn around the economy. It took Reagan 1.5 years. And then he created 10 years of prosperity. It took him 7 months the first time. And he inherited a much worse situation this time, which is, inflation that had gone almost to record levels. And all of the things that he's doing are exactly the things that you have to do to reduce inflation. And let's face it, you can't do much more in this short period of time than he has done. So I would like him to address it, even though you could say it hasn't become enough of an issue yet for him to devote too much time to it, right? It's a political call I think he could go either way on. So I'm not going to cover everything I covered on the early show about the little weasel, but this guy should have been kicked out about 2 years ago, Zelensky, when he started fighting a useless war. When he was checkmated, I don't know how many of his people have died since then. Every single one of those people he had killed that didn't have to die. There came a point where this little product of a crooked Ukrainian oligarch knew that he couldn't win the war. He stopped even giving us strategies for how to do it, because the only strategy he had, Biden rejected, which is attack Moscow. Biden didn't want to have a nuclear war. Even Biden. I don't know if he understood it, but somebody said to him, boom, boom, boom. Oh, no. They told me I never can press the red button there. She told me if I press the red button, I don't get my ice cream. I'm not going to press that red button. That's the level at which he operated, and I kept us safe. Now, here's the real issue for me with Ukraine, because I have a lot more experience with Ukraine than most of these people do. And I'm going to show you this article from, I don't know if you'd call it a liberal publication, a middle-of-the-road publication, Foreign Policy. Sure not extreme right-wing, neo-Nazi. This is from Foreign Policy magazine by a reporter named Ankel of Zora. I don't know her, but here's the headline. Ukraine is still too corrupt to join the West. Can you see that? Now, I can tell you without any doubt, and I did the research this weekend, they have had 8 presidents in Ukraine since they came out of communism. They've had 1 that was honest. And they poisoned him. Putin poisoned him. Nobody's saying Putin's a good guy. In fact, when I went to Ukraine the first time, I remember like it was yesterday. I went to see John McCain, and I said, who should I deal with? He said, they're all corrupt. Big, small, they're all corrupt. I said, what about the police? I'm going there to do advising on policing, and eventually I helped to build a emergency management center in Kharkiv. He said, oh, the police is different. He said, we're not talking about the police. I mean, if they have corruption in the police, it's the same kind of corruption you have all over. Some people get bribed, some don't. No, the politicians are the corrupt ones, and the businessmen. And the businessmen run the politician. The oligarchs run the country. And the present president is both corrupt, and everybody thinks he chopped the head of a journalist off. Kuchma, that was. And then I met, believe it or not, at the first dinner I spoke at, all of the former prime ministers, of which there were many. Kuchma used to change prime ministers every 3 weeks. And a lot of the people that are now in the government were in the Kuchma government, which was known to be a cash machine. And even back then, they had the best money launderer in Eastern Europe, better than any Russian. His name was Kolomoisky, and he ran Bank Privat. And over a period of time, without any doubt, he laundered out well over $100 billion of the money of the people of Ukraine. So don't tell me they care about the people of Ukraine. They stole their money. And they all became billionaires based on their money, on the people of Ukraine. This is the foreign aid that would go. And then it would go through an NGO. A lot of this Soros was involved in. And the big debate in those days, and those days are just, 2012, 13, 14, was Ukraine more corrupt than Russia, or was Russia more corrupt than Ukraine? On a gross basis, of course, Russia was a much bigger country. And the feeling among most of our politicians on a per capita basis, Ukraine could have been worse. But everyone said they did a much better job of laundering money because Kolomoisky was a genius. Kolomoisky, when the government changed, had to run away. And the World Bank wouldn't let him back into Ukraine because the World Bank, which would sit back and tolerate any kind of corruption, but didn't want anybody to know about it. So Kolomoisky had become notorious, and he hid in Israel until Bibi Netanyahu threw him out because he was messing around in Israel. Now, why am I telling you so much about Kolomoisky? In New York, we have an expression for a person who helps to make the career of another person. And maybe it's because we have so many Jewish people in New York. We call that person the rabbi. So, like, if I get appointed a judge, they're going to say, who is this rabbi? Meaning, who made the connection? Doesn't have to be Jewish. It's just an expression that we use. Who's the fixer? Now, the guy who made Zelensky is, without any doubt, one of the crookedest men in the history of Ukraine, Kolomoisky. He made him. He made him a millionaire, maybe a billionaire. He made him a ridiculous star of a totally absurd comedy in which he was awful. But he made millions from it. And he funded his entire campaign while he was exiled, and actually exiled from Ukraine and from Israel. And as soon as the puppet won, Kolomoisky came back. And then finally, Kolomoisky got too hot and showing that even among crooks, there's no honor. He put Kolomoisky in jail. Oh, he said, well, maybe he's straightened out. Yeah, right. He sits on top of files in which he could recoup for his country. 120 billion, 130 billion from the people right around him, from the oligarchs all around him. He's got all the files on him. He's got files that would show bribes to not just Biden, maybe double the amount we know about, but I am told to a lot more American and foreign politicians. And not only that, he has access to the offshore bank accounts. Zelensky does. He's doing what we call covering it up. Who covers up stuff like that? Crooks, dishonest people, slimeballs. Someone who cared about his people would go get that money for the benefit of his people. Somebody who cared about his people would settle this war because he has no plan to win it. So why is he continuing? Why today did he say that the war is going to go on for quite some time? And the president, I have to say, this is a new Donald Trump. He was very upset, but he didn't lose his temper. He just said this was the worst statement he could have made. And I'm going to tell you this. He knows most of what I know. He knows he's dealing with a crook. I don't know if you can see the little thing in his eye, but he knows I shouldn't be dealing with this guy. I mean, where's my wallet? And Vance, see, what I really wanted to happen was I wanted Vance to say, hey, tough guy, big general, who I don't think has ever been on the front lines. How about you and me go at it? I'm a Marine. You're a big general. How about we have a little, what do you want? You want to box? You want to do extreme boxing? A little wrestling? Come on, you're a tough guy. I don't know. You know what would have happened? Pants would have gotten wet. So as soon as he acted like a moron in the White House and betrayed his people, he ran off to all those great absolute experts on how to run government brilliantly, like the guy who's running the failing United Kingdom with about a 4% approval rating. And Macron, 15% approval rating. And Macron was afraid to meet him. And his wife said, if you don't meet him, I'm going to slap the shit out of you. And Macron showed up. But imagine going to them for advice. So his country can be like France. Maybe they're corrupt, but at least they work in Ukraine. No, in France, when they tried to reform France and get them to work 40 hours a week, the French wanted overtime for the hours 30 to 40. That's for the 8 months they work. When you go to France and you get in a cab, just start talking to the driver. If he doesn't make fun of your French or humiliate you in some way, you know what you do? You tell him you speak English and he'll try to speak English and you humiliate his English. My ex-wife loved the French and she spoke very good French. And I speak terrible French, but I understand it because I took it in school forever, but I never liked it. Yeah, I can speak Latin. You want to speak Latin? But
what made you take French?
I don't know.
In school?
It was close enough to Latin, so I didn't have to work too hard. So I took French, and I do understand it, but I have a hard time pronouncing it correctly. And every time you pronounce it wrong, if you've ever been in France, particularly in Paris, they say, "Oh no! You do not pronounce my language that way. Not le petit, le petit, le petit. You must emphasize the teat." Yeah, right. Okay. So now I'm in a cab and I'm talking to the guy. And he says, I said, I'd like to go to the American embassy. You know, you want to go to the American embassy? The what? The American embassy. No, I said to him. It's embassy. Embassy. Oh, she got so embarrassed. She said, you can't do it to them. He said, wait till I get all those waiters. This is my new style. Now, I'm going to tell you something funny. Outside of Paris, they're very nice. Outside of Paris, they're just like Italians and Spanish. And if you don't speak their language, they appreciate the fact that you're trying and they help you. But in Paris, they are a bunch of... So that's where he goes. He goes to those losers. And you know what happened? Macron is training French soldiers. I understand Putin is shaking in his boots that the French may show up in Ukraine. You know what would happen if the French showed up in Ukraine? Putin would fly like a small drone over, send a little water on them, and they would surrender. They wouldn't just surrender Ukraine. They'd surrender France. And he'd have France. They're useless. The Western European leaders, with the exception of the one I met with last week, are useless, one after another. They're running failing governments. I don't know how they could have taken the German government, which 15, 20 years ago was a model of efficiency, effectiveness, hardworking, work ethic, and they're less productive now than some of the other Western European countries. So, I mean, good luck. I think we're at the point where the only way this is going to work if he's out, because it also doesn't make sense for us to spend all this time, all this effort, including this financial deal that Trump recommended to him, where he should be smart enough to realize it creates an American involvement in Ukraine. An involvement that will mean that if we do ever have to defend them, we'll be able to explain it to the American people. Look, even if Trump wanted to, or Biden wanted to put troops in, and even if he could get by a few months, by now, the American people would be revolting against this ridiculous war that nobody's going to win. We're tired of wars that nobody is going to win. And if we have no stake in Ukraine, and we don't, we have a humanitarian stake, but we have a humanitarian stake in the whole world. And we can go to half the countries in Africa and save them. Ukraine, and Ukrainian people are wonderful. I love you. But Ukraine is not a friend of the United States in the sense they've ever done anything for us. They're not Israel. They're not the UK. I mean, we're debating with Canada, but Canada's fought wars with us. Canada's troops actually fought the last couple of wars. The French troops don't even fight. But I mean, I guess the French have been, it was a couple hundred years ago, right? They helped in the Revolutionary War. What has Ukraine ever done for us? Nothing. They were part of the Soviets. And when they came out of the Soviets, they've been crooked. One president who was honest, and then a string of systemic corruption, which is why he wants the war to go on. I don't know. This is a retake of Arafat. When Arafat got everything he wanted from Bill Clinton, who I thought was like in love with him. He must have liked the thing around the head or something. But he gave him everything he wanted. Gave him half of Jerusalem. He didn't have to make a guarantee of Israeli security. And Arafat said, gee, Billy, I'd rather have a war. You make a lot more money with a war. I mean, I'm not going to be getting the billions from all these people. My wife, I mean, she's already a billionaire living in the south of France, but, you know, you can run out of those billions pretty fast. You'll find out when you get out and start, you know, shaking people down for your crooked Clinton Foundation. You know who the biggest contributors to the Clinton Foundation are? The Ukrainians. You think they've been messing around with the Democrats just now? 2016, the Ukrainian ambassador endorsed Hillary Clinton. Oh, but that wasn't election interference. The Russians interfered. They put out cartoons. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. The Ukrainian government produced false information about Donald Jr., Donald Trump, and Manafort. The embassy in Ukraine was used as a Hillary Clinton campaign office. And Soros funneled a lot of money through Kolomoisky, the guy who runs Zelensky, or used to. I could go on and on. They've interfered in the 2020 election. They interfered in the last election. Zelensky came over here and campaigned with the Democrats, which J.D. Vance reminded him of. He never answered it, just interrupted. I'd like to know what we owe him. What has he ever done for us? I can tell you what we've done for them. I'd like to know what they've done for us. So it doesn't mean we should treat them unfairly. It doesn't mean we should treat them in an inhumane way. It does mean we got to make decisions about where we should be wasting or using, rather, our money effectively in order to protect us or, God forbid, our troops. And they don't rise to that level. And you tell me, well, you know, if Russia takes over Ukraine, the next one they take over is Poland. Well, then we'll go to war. It wouldn't be like Russia took over Ukraine for the first time. They had Ukraine when Hitler marched right through. Right? It's not as if they're getting something new. Now, Poland was never part of Russia. It was part of the ridiculous Soviet Union. But Ukraine used to be part of Russia. So I don't want them to take Ukraine. I don't want to see Americans die for something that isn't necessary. There's a place to decide where that happens, and that's at the border of NATO. I think this guy, see him here? I think he's going. I do. And I think he made a terrible, terrible mistake. But I think he's about money. I think this is all about money. It's about continuing this war, and they can whack up all those billions. Wars make people rich, which is the tragedy of it, and why we have them so often. So tomorrow night, when the president gives his speech, here are the issues that are mostly affecting the American people, the big ones. So there's a chart on the board. The black represents Democrats. That's good. I like that. The red represents Republicans. I never liked that because it's like red China. And that almost no color represents the independent voters. So the most important issue, certainly for Republicans and independent voters, is the cost of living, which is why I think there needs to be some explanation of prices. And to the extent they haven't gone down, why? And then how they are going to go down, because I'm quite confident they will. Certainly, but I think by the end of the year, certainly into the beginning of next year. Government integrity, you notice, is a bigger issue for Democrats than it is for Republicans, which means Democrats think, and they probably buy some of the Musk attacks. Now, this is ridiculous because this government is run completely honestly, and the last government was probably the most corrupt in our history. Now, the interesting one is Republicans are not as concerned now about government integrity. They shouldn't be. Trump is the president. But independents are the most concerned about it. I would like to know more about that, so I'm going to try to get the internals of the poll. Is that because of the prior Biden situation or the present Trump situation? I would say it probably is the prior Biden situation because Trump hasn't been in office long enough. Personal freedoms, Republicans and independents are about equally concerned, and the Democrats don't care because they've stolen all our personal freedoms. They're the ones who've taken them away from us. Public safety has come down quite a bit, but strangely, Democrats worried more about it than Republicans and independents. The health of the environment, about equal between Republicans, between Democrats and independents, very little though, and among Republicans, non-existent. Foreign adversaries, nobody's worried about. Business environment, nobody's worried about. And there's a certain number not sure. So the big issues are cost of living, government integrity for the independents, I think. And then, of course, I missed the biggest one, which is security at the border, which is right behind cost of living. So he's got plenty to talk about on both, and plenty that'll be relevant to what's going on. I don't like to talk too much about New York politics, but I just came back from New York, and therefore I have to tell you the reaction to Andrew Cuomo running is, oh my God, we thought he was in jail. I swear. A lot of Republicans at the Queens Republican Club that I spoke at thought he had gone to jail, and they were fighting over he went to jail for the 12 women who say he assaulted them or touched them or said bad things to them, whatever. I don't remember. There were so many of them, and I never know if I'm going to be perfectly honest, and don't get angry at me. I never know if that's true or not, because I never bought the idea that women always tell the truth any more than men always tell the truth. I kind of think that the idea of lying is human. That one is not determined by gender. The person who can beat the other person up in a boxing match is determined by gender. Or the person who thinks more shrewdly and long-term is determined by gender, women. But this other stuff, men lie, women lie. And when it comes to sex, a lot of people lie. So you got to be really careful. As a prosecutor, I was always very, very careful about those cases. I found there were some horrendous ones, and I found there were some horrendous ones where charges were being made falsely. So I don't know about Cuomo and the women thing. It did seem like there were a lot, but if you're after him, you can get a lot. I thought the one he should have gone to jail for was killing the old people, because I know why he did it. He did it for campaign contributions. The nursing homes were getting upset. At the hospitals, they're getting all the extra COVID money. That was ridiculously over the top because we panicked. And it was all going to the hospital. So come on, send us those people over here to die. We'll make a lot of money. Now, here's the problem. Their chances of dying increased dramatically the minute they walked into a nursing home because the nursing home was filled with COVID, whereas a hospital, you could segregate them. And in fact, when Trump sent the boat, which they begged for, they never used it. And they never used all the beds. He and that communist de Blasio kept saying, we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough beds. We don't have enough beds. Have you ever driven in from LaGuardia Airport to New York City over the Triborough Bridge, RFK Bridge? Now, you see this big, gigantic building. It's on an island called Roosevelt Island. I don't know how many beds it has, maybe 4,000. It used to be a mental hospital. Those 4,000 nuts are running around New York City beating the hell out of people now. They're not in there. Those beds were all available. And it's so big, you could segregate it into maybe 5 different units. How about the mental hospital they closed in Queens? Creedmoor. There are about a couple hundred people in Creedmoor. They could have been moved somewhere. Or they could have been segregated. There were plenty of beds. And when the hospital ship came, they never used it because they didn't want to give Trump credit. So this is the kind of guy that's running for mayor now. Finally, the biggest thing people are upset about in New York is the crime and the way criminals are treated. There are somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 people walking the streets of New York who would not be when I was mayor or Bloomberg was mayor. It started when they decided that we just let everybody out. We can't hold people just based on dangerousness. So crime went up dramatically. And there are about 5,000 to 7,000 people who are predatory criminals who commit multiple crimes that are walking the street that wouldn't be. And you can multiply that out around the country if you want to find one of the reasons for the increased crime, which is actually worse in some other places than New York. Andrew Cuomo passed that bill. There's another bill that says that if a 16 or a 17-year-old kills his 2 parents, you're going to treat him like a juvenile. We used to treat him like an adult. And then if that goes right down to any number of other crimes, so that we encourage juvenile crime and we cover up their record. So when they now become an 18-year-old and they committed maybe their 25th assault because they've been assaulting since they were 12, you don't know about it. So they're a first offender. So this serial assaulter gets out on the street and now kills somebody. Cuomo passed that. Cuomo also passed a bill to change the terms of parole. Do you have any idea, since he did that, how many cop killers have been put out on the street? Take a guess, Ted. Or
I know we've.
Oh, you know the answer. Take a guess.
Yeah, I can't. Take a guess. How many cop killers have been let out since
2018?
2018.
2018.
In
How
the
many
city of New
cop
York.
killers have been paroled?
In New York City.
Let out of most of them with life sentences in lieu of a death penalty.
Every one of them.
Just take a guess. Every one of them.
Well,
That's a good one.
the number. Okay, 42.
Okay, yeah, I would never been able to get.
And there's one coming up now. You
That's
know
a
what
good
it does?
answer, though. Every one of them.
And several have committed crimes since then. Oh, that's Cuomo. And he was the moderate governor. Imagine if he wasn't moderate. We'd be working for China. Oh, he had a Chinese spy in his administration too.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, all Democrats have a Chinese spy. Yeah, Wang Wang,
Bang,
the
bang.
driver for
Pelosi.
no, not Pelosi, for
Feinstein.
Feinstein.
What are they doing?
19
Remember when
years,
they were?
and she was on the Intelligence Committee.
Are they getting paid for that or something, these Democrats?
Yeah. Well, why do you think they all went nuts when Trump said it's the Chinese virus? Everybody's defending China. Oh, it's being xenophobic.
Xenophobic.
Look here, I didn't even defend it because I don't know what xenophobe means. I thought it was an instrument.
It is that term came
But
out
he was
of
a xenophobe.
that when Trump won, they started using
Well,
those words.
yeah.
Xenophobic,
So what were the people?
gaslighting.
If he's a xenophobe, see, I don't really know what xenophobe means, but I want you, 'cause I know you're all very smart.
Yes.
So when Lyme disease first emerged, which a lot of my golfing buddies used to get, and when I played golf in certain places, like particularly in the Northeast, and you go in the woods, they wanted you to spray, and I had some friends. I had one friend who had serious nerve damage from Lyme disease.
Wow, yeah.
So what?
Lyme, Connecticut.
Yeah. What about? I remember one of the biggest challenges I had before 9/11 with West Nile virus.
West Nile virus.
Why?
Coming from the West Nile.
Yeah, was that what was that? Xenophobic
Yeah.
against the
Well, it was
Egyptians?
folks.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was China. The only reason they got sensitive is because they deliberately sent their people around the world to kill us,
Well, but it raises
and they were
questions.
covering it up. Imagine.
Well, it raises questions, Mayor. Why were these Democrat officials so focused on keeping the focus away from the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese origins of the virus?
I think the Chinese have done a magnificent job of infiltrating us. Brilliant job of infiltrating us. Look at our schools. They use everything at their command to move us toward Marxism. And I mean, it'd take a long time to describe the 40 or 50 years that they were doing this and doing it much more effectively than the Russians. But look at as an example of what I'm saying, a proof of what I'm saying. Sometime, maybe tomorrow night or the next. Well, tomorrow night we're going to do the speech, but the next night we'll get some video that we played a long time ago of the parade in San Francisco when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco. Now, Xi Jinping is the head of the Communist Party. The Communist Party has killed between 80 and 100 million of its own people. Killed a lot of other people too. I'm not talking about the genocide. I'm talking about their own people. He is responsible for, I mean, Mao did probably the biggest number, but he's responsible probably for 15 or 20 million. So when he's going down the streets of San Francisco, there are Chinese people waving for the living person who has killed the most of their people. The man who's slaughtered more Chinese than anybody on earth is getting a hero's welcome in American San Francisco because the Democrat Party of San Francisco is tied in with him. Now, what they do for them, what they get from them, I don't know. I think some get money. I think some it's ideological, and some it's just plain stupidity and brainwashing. I mean, Democrats will go along with anything. Look at Schumer. He sold out his own people. When I knew Schumer, he was a very proud Jewish guy, and I used to march in Soviet Jewry parades with him. And now he's a traitor. He wanted Netanyahu removed. And then every time one of those maniacs makes a hateful Jewish statement, he hides. But there you go. I mean, many of those people, I'm sure, are being forced to do that. They don't want to cheer this guy. Maybe their father was killed by him, or their uncle, or their cousin, or an operative of the Chinese Communist Party. But that gives you an idea of the control they have on the Democrat Party. Because we know they gave Biden 31 million. How much do they give other people? I mean, to go nuts, for example, when Trump cut off people from China in late January, early February of 2020 was a giveaway. I mean, now he did some things wrong in dealing with the pandemic. You can't possibly have dealt with it correctly. I mean, you didn't know what it was. They were in good faith. But that was a brilliant decision. That probably saved half a million to 1 million lives. That would have been 1 month more of Chinese spreading it when it was at its worst.
And they tried to claim that was because he was racist or something like that.
Yeah, he was anti-COVID.
Racist against COVID, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
But that's the problem. That's the problem that we face. So we're gonna be concluding in a moment. But since I was talking about my former city and the race for mayor, I want to say that something good and something bad came out today about New York City. New York City continues to be the place where more people who graduate from college come to work by 2 to 1 over any other American city. More than twice Los Angeles and Chicago combined, twice Washington, 2.5 times Dallas, and 3 times, as I said, Chicago and Los Angeles. People come to New York to start their careers. But there's something to hang on to. Here's the problem. New York lost 78,000 people last year, and they've lost people for the last 4 years in a row. And it looks like it's going to be worse. Looks like it's going to be worse in 2024, where we don't have the final numbers yet. And then a poll that was taken by the Citizens Budget Commission, which is not Democrat or Republican, found only 30% of the people in New York will say they're happy living there. And half are making plans to leave within the next 4 years. Half are making plans to leave in the next 4 years. And that's devastating. That's a state of societal depression that is not being dealt with because they have no leadership. Yes, they do. They have Democrats. You think it's terribly different in other American cities? You think it's terribly different in Philadelphia, or where they set records for homicide, or in St. Louis, where they set records for homicide, or in Chicago, where every weekend is a killing field? Or, I mean, that's something that has to be dealt with too. The Democrat control over our cities and the fact that they're ruining our cities. And I hope the president makes some mention of that tomorrow night, because as you know, the possessor of the bully pulpit, he can do something about that, and not to let us off the hook. You see this happy guy? He's in the Senate. He doesn't know he's in the Senate, but he's in the Senate. He has no idea he's in the Senate. He voted against every one of Trump's nominees, just because. I want you to know that he got $5 million from the richest shipping magnate in Red China. And when he did, he changed all his positions on China.
No story about that.
It happens to be his father-in-law, who was Taiwanese, but has the largest shipping contract in Red China. Now, you tell me how he accomplished that. The two of them hate each other. They're on the verge of war. If you're a Taiwanese and the Red Chinese approve you to be the top shipbuilder in China, you got to be a traitor. The Chinese aren't going to take some nice, honest Taiwanese and make him the biggest shipbuilder in China. And then all of a sudden, he's a lot more quiet about Taiwan. His wife comes from Taiwan, but they made the billions with the Red Chinese. Yeah, he also condemned Trump. And I think the reason why he opposed Trump so much and joined them in the January 6th fiasco is because Trump was targeted by the Chinese government. I can tell you of at least 2 major contributors who cut off giving Trump money because they were afraid it would affect their businesses in China. And they told him he was going to do it, and he told them in a much more direct way than I'm about to say, go to hell. But a little stronger than that, which will tell you that we got a president that really does care about America. So tomorrow night we'll be back. We'll be getting ready for whatever this is, joint address, State of the Union. Kara, I think, did a good job of going over the topics. She got an outline from the White House: accomplishments, economy, border, and peace in the world. Quite a list. An administration in the first 2 months, unlike any other. Never seen anything like this before. This is like a gigantic. I mean, it didn't even. I can say a snowball that becomes a big, gigantic glob of snow going down. It began that way, and it's just now gigantic. And they're fighting so many battles on so many fronts. And the president, when he does the press conferences, I want you to watch how he goes from one subject to another. I mean, I'm not even going back to Biden being demented, who couldn't do any of that. But even a normal person would get confused. I mean, isn't it remarkable to have a president that can explain, even if you don't agree with him, that can explain to you why he's doing what he's doing? He tells you the rationale for what he's doing, and then you can agree or disagree. So, I think it's going to be a great speech. The Democrats say they're not going to show up. They don't show up anyway. No, but I mean, they're not showing up for anything but a Hollywood production. I mean, you know, if it was being produced by Nancy Pelosi's daughter as a Hollywood production, they would show up. But this is like real politics. I mean, this is real government. They don't show up for that.
Gosh, yeah. Real policy here.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that. What's your prediction, Mayor? How many Democrat members of the House and Senate combined don't attend?
I bet more than half show up.
Right, exactly, right?
Yeah.
They can't even. These are weak people.
I mean, I don't know how warped it can get, but how are the American people, even the ones that don't like Trump, going to think you shouldn't show up for this? Even if he's the enemy, you want to find out what he's going to do.
Right.
Lambasted if they don't show up.
Well, show some basic respect to the country,
of
right?
Of course. Yeah.
AOC may not attend, of course, because
is she what?
Well, she's
serving drinks at a bar.
Well, she may be concerned that
She got a good
Homan,
gig.
Our understanding is that Tom Homan, and maybe
her?
even the under Attorney General Pam Bondi, may charge Representative AOC for instructing illegal aliens on how to avoid immigration officials.
In other words, obstruction of justice. I was wondering when that would happen.
I mean, she admitted with NPR recently that she did, in fact, advise criminal aliens on how to avoid detection and deportation. And so people are calling for her to be prosecuted for aiding and abetting illegal aliens.
Wouldn't it be funny if they came with shackles and pulled her out of there?
You think they should put her in leg irons like Navarro?
Yes.
Well, look, and it's not even right. It's not, they're the ones that started this.
We
right?
shouldn't do that.
Of course not. Of course not. And
I have no mercy.
and they're the ones.
They literally
You ask that same question to your average Democrat about President Trump, what do you think they'd say?
Put him in leg irons.
Yes. Meanwhile, we're sitting here agreeing that we don't want to
We're
see
not
that.
them. That's why. That's why
We don't want to see that. Not in America.
No. That's why. That's how we can win this long term. And that doesn't mean not doing justice. I don't think we should back off any prosecution that we should, but they should be brought as regular prosecution.
Yes.
I may have, but I can't remember. When I was U.S. attorney, I had over 5,000 cases. I had some real criminals, not the make-believe fake cases they had. I never used leg irons. And I met one of my colleagues on a plane coming back from New York. And I said, do you ever remember us using leg irons? He said, no, I don't think we even had any in the police department. They use them in prisons. They use them when you get into prison. They don't. American police don't arrest people in leg. You've seen how many perp walks have you seen? You see them in leg irons?
I mean,
Peter Navarro was over 70 years old. I mean, they couldn't outrun him.
Yeah.
And they call us neo-Nazis.
Right.
That's not
Well,
Hollywood script.
So when I have time and we can get off the constant new issue, I'm going to explain to you why I think in Europe they use the neo-Nazi thing that people like the Democrats, the way the Democrats use racist against us. All those parties that they say are neo-Nazi, I'd be surprised if the vast majority of them, the biggest problem they may have is they got a couple of people who are hanging on, like we have the Proud Boys and whatever that other group, but they're not neo-Nazi. I mean, Georgia Maloney, I spent an hour with, and she was accused of being a neo-Nazi until she became famous, and now they figure it doesn't work because she's so pretty. I mean, who could be that pretty and be a neo-Nazi, right? But of course she's not a neo-Nazi, and neither was Salvini, who started it, or Berlusconi. They started the Italian
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
Some of these people, family, were killed by Mussolini.
Right.
And the guy in Srpska, his family was killed by the Nazis. And because he's right wing, he's accused of being a neo-Nazi. And the Nazis killed the Serbs.
Yeah.
Not as many as the Jews, but they killed the Serbs because they were Orthodox. And the Nazis distrusted the Orthodox because they were too nationalistic.
Right.
So they felt they could never make them Nazis, because if you're a Bulgarian Orthodox, then both your political instincts and your religious instinct make you a Bulgarian. And Hitler believed, I got to kill them before I kill the Roman Catholics, because their allegiance is to Rome.
And that's right, Mayor. And we talk about neo-Nazis. They still use what happened back in 1930s Germany with the Nazi movement for censorship today, right? They refer back to that time period to censor you, to limit your speech to such a degree. I mean, I think any American would recoil.
The Serbian leader has 2 letters from Bibi Netanyahu thanking him for the support of Israel. So even if he is a neo-Nazi, he got over it. And he's on the right side now. Meanwhile, the government that's persecuting him, Bosnia, supports Hamas, contributed two of the murderers on September 11th, is in favor of Hamas running Gaza.
And of course, the State Department last week came out in support of that court ruling.
Yeah, and in support of the Muslim government
and
against the government that supports Israel and cheered when Donald Trump was elected, in favor of the government that cheered when we were killed 9/11.
That's right.
So, and Rubio's doing a great job of catching up with all those.
Well, maybe we can
communist.
Maybe we can call your friend here, Ms. Tammy Bruce, who we've had on the program before.
Yeah,
she is the State Department spokesperson and had come out
it's all wrong
last week in support of the decision.
In support of the people who hate us, against the people who love us.
Yeah, and a story for another time, but maybe we can get into that as well in the coming weeks.
Well, tomorrow night, you get ready for the joint address.
We're not calling it.
And you pray for the people of Israel. You pray for the people of Ukraine, because they're at war, wars that were never necessary. Pray for the people of Iran, because I believe they're on the verge of freedom if it's played right. And of course, pray for the president, because we need him. Wow, do we need him? God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk,